I came home for Christmas, but my spot at the table was gone. We're doing immediate family only, Mom said while setting a plate for my sister's fiancé. I left and quietly ended the rent transfers and loan payments. At 8:20 a.m. 32 angry messages, all in capital letters, and 40 minutes later a loud knock on the door from. This was the saddest Christmas of my life. Not because something tragic happened. Not because I was stranded or sick or heartbroken. But because I drove 20 minutes through the snow back to the house I grew up in thinking I still had a place at the table, and I didn't. We all live in Buffalo. Snow is just a part of life here. You don't cancel plans over it. You bundle up, scrape the ice off your windshield, and you go. I grew up learning how to brake before turns and how to steer into a skid before I even had my permit. So when I loaded up my car with gifts, wine, and a pie early on Christmas Eve, I wasn't worried about the snow. I was worried about how things had felt lately. Tense. Distant. Not overtly hostile, just off. So it was Christmas. You don't skip Christmas. And I'd tried. I really had. I helped Rachel cover her car loan earlier that year when her hours got cut. Sent grocery cards to my parents when their utility bills got out of control. I even helped pay off some back rent on their lake house just to keep things afloat. Nobody ever said thank you, but I didn't expect it. That's not why I did it. I pulled into the driveway around 4. Everything looked normal. Lights glowing from the front window, wreath on the door, the smell of cinnamon and cloves drifting out when I stepped inside. I brought in 2 large bags of presents and a pie I'd stayed up late baking the night before. The living room was warm, filled with voices and music. Rachel waved at me. Brett gave me a casual nod. I asked Mom if she wanted help setting the table. She barely glanced up. We're doing immediate family only this year. She said it like she was mentioning the weather. No explanation. No apology. I stood there for a second thinking maybe she'd made a mistake. But then she turned and placed a plate at the end of the table. For Brett. Rachel's fiancé. Her fiancé of 8 months who doesn't even live in Buffalo. The one who called us a low-key family, and once told me I seemed like I work too much. I looked at the table. 6 settings. Mom, Dad, Rachel, Brett, my uncle and his girlfriend. That was it. No extra plate. No folding chair in the corner. No space for me. Rachel stepped over and said it wasn't her decision. That she didn't know they were doing things that way. Then she said we could do our own Christmas tomorrow, just the 2 of us. But she didn't look like she meant it. I didn't argue. I didn't cry or demand answers. I just picked up the bags I brought in, turned around and walked out. They let me. I sat in my car for a while down the street watching the lights through the falling snow. I'd spent half my paycheck this month on those gifts. I bought my dad a new drill he'd been eyeing for months. Got Mom a new purse to replace the one with the broken zipper. I even asked Rachel for Brett's favorite authors just to make sure I picked a book he'd like. I drove home, parked outside my apartment and sat in silence for a long time. I couldn't figure out what hurt more, that they didn't want me there, or that they didn't think I'd mind. Around midnight I opened my laptop and started canceling everything. The $600 monthly rent help I was sending my parents. Gone. Rachel's car loan payments I'd been quietly covering since July. Over. The Amazon Prime account they all shared under my name. Cancelled. My name was the one on the Netflix account too. That went next. No warning. No message. I just flipped the switch and went to bed. The next morning at exactly 8:20 a.m. my phone buzzed. 32 messages. All in capital letters. All from my mom and Rachel. And 40 minutes later there was a loud, steady knock on my front door. I didn't answer it. I just sat there drinking coffee and listening. Because I knew this wasn't over, not by a long shot. The knocking didn't stop. At first it was loud and frantic, then it turned to ringing, then back to pounding again. I let it happen. I wasn't ready to open the door, and honestly I was curious how long they'd keep at it. My phone had already lit up with message after message, most from my mom and Rachel. A few from my dad that looked like they were written under pressure, short clipped sentences that didn't sound like him. I didn't open any of them, but I read the previews as they flashed across the screen. Finito. This is childish. Why are you acting like this? Are you seriously doing this over one dinner? You're being cruel. Stop being cheap. Rachel needs your help. We're family. It was like they were throwing everything they could think of at me, hoping one angle would work. Guilt, obligation, shame, emotional blackmail. Nothing new. When I finally opened the door they were both standing there. No coats. It was snowing lightly and they looked cold, but neither seemed to care. My mom looked furious. Rachel looked exhausted, like she'd been up all night figuring out what to say. Mom spoke first, skipping right over any greeting. She asked what I had done. Why the money wasn't going through. Why her grocery card was suddenly declined. Why Rachel couldn't make her car payment. She said I was overreacting and blowing things out of proportion. I asked her what she thought I was reacting to. She said, "You weren't uninvited. It was just a smaller dinner." I reminded her that Brett, who they've known less than a year, had a plate. She didn't even try to deny it. She just crossed her arms and said, "Well, he's part of Rachel's future. We didn't think you'd make a big deal out of it." Then she said the part that stuck with me most. "It's your responsibility to support this family. You have no husband, no kids, and you make good money. Rachel's starting a life. She needs help more than you do." Rachel didn't jump in. She didn't deny it or apologize. She just stood there quietly. Like she agreed but didn't want to be the one to say it out loud. That's when I realized something. My place in this family had turned into a utility account. I was the one they tapped when things got tough. The one expected to absorb the stress, handle the problems, and do it quietly because I had less to lose. I told them both that things were going to be different now. That I wasn't going to keep pouring time, money, and energy into people who didn't see me as more than a resource. I said I hoped Brett could carry the weight I'd been holding up all year. They stood there for a while after that, going back and forth between pleading and guilt-tripping. Mom asked if I was really going to let this ruin the holidays. Rachel said we shouldn't carry this kind of bitterness into the new year. That it wasn't healthy. But it wasn't bitterness. It was clarity. Eventually I told them I needed them to leave. That this wasn't a negotiation. They left. Later that night I sat in silence in my living room, the same lemon pie still on the counter, unopened. I didn't turn on the TV. I didn't check my phone. I just sat there processing everything. New Year's Eve came and I spent it alone. I didn't feel festive. I didn't even feel angry. Just sad. Not the sharp kind, the dull, heavy kind that sits in your chest and doesn't go anywhere. I didn't expect to feel that empty. I thought cutting them off would bring relief. Instead it just brought silence. But that silence didn't last long. Because a few days later I got a message I never expected. Not from my parents, not from Rachel, but from Brett. And what he sent changed ever. You thing. The message came on January 3rd, right as I was getting used to the silence. I had spent the last few days trying to move on. I deleted old texts, cleared out group photos from my camera roll, and boxed up the leftover Christmas gifts. The lemon pie went uneaten. I threw it out New Year's Day. Then Brett's message popped up. No greeting. No lead up. I don't know if I should be sending this, but I think you deserve to hear it. Attached was a single audio file. No context. I stared at it for a while. Honestly, I almost deleted it without listening. I was tired. I didn't need another reminder of how unwanted I'd felt sitting in my car outside their house while they carved up ham and passed plates around a table I used to belong to. But curiosity got the better of me. Or maybe hope, the dangerous kind that lingers even when you know better. So I played it. The first few seconds were just background noise. Clinking cutlery, low voices, Christmas music faint in the background. It was the sound of a dinner I wasn't invited to. I recognized every voice immediately. My uncle asked how the martyr was doing, meaning me. Mom laughed and said, "She's probably pouting in her apartment like we ruined her wedding day or something." Then Rachel spoke. "She'll get over it. He always does. She needs time to feel like a victim. I'll be nice to her in a few weeks, just until she starts sending money again." Someone chuckled. Then my dad, quieter than the rest, said, "At least now we can enjoy a holiday without one of her lectures." Another voice, I couldn't tell who, said something about me always trying to prove I'm better. That I dress like she's showing up to a job interview. That I give gifts like she's being graded. They were all laughing. Except one voice that stood out halfway through the recording. Brett. He didn't laugh. He didn't play along. In fact, he sounded uncomfortable. At one point, after Rachel joked again about pretending to be the good sister to get the rent help back, Brett said, "You know she can probably hear all of this through the door, right?" The table went quiet. That was the last thing on the recording. I didn't cry. I didn't throw my phone or scream into a pillow like you'd expect in some dramatic scene. I just sat there with a cold knot in my stomach, the kind you get when you find out someone you love has been mocking you behind your back for years. Not just in a heated moment but as a habit. Comfortably. Casually. Brett sent another message after the audio. "I'm sorry. I didn't know they talked about you like that. I recorded it because it felt wrong. I didn't think they'd be like that to your face, but then I realized they probably are, just quieter." I told Rachel afterward that what she said was messed up. We argued. I moved into the house after New Year's. It's been awkward ever since. I didn't reply. Not right away. I didn't know what to say. He didn't have to send that recording. He could have kept quiet and just played neutral. He didn't. And even if I didn't fully trust his motives yet, that moment told me he was, at the very least, a human being with a conscience. Which was more than I could say for the rest of them. Over the next few days I went further than I thought I would. I removed them as emergency contacts. Blocked them from viewing my calendar and location sharing. I deleted them from my shared Amazon account, changed my streaming passwords, and removed access to anything I'd once set up for convenience. The final straw came a few days later when Rachel messaged me. No apology. No reference to anything that had happened. Just one line. "Hey, can you turn the rent payments back on? We're a little behind." That was it. No, "How are you?" No, "I'm sorry for what I said." Just a direct request like I was some customer service department she needed help from. I stared at the message for a full minute, then closed the app and deleted the thread. I never replied. I don't know if she realized I'd heard the recording. Maybe she thought I was just having a prolonged tantrum. Maybe she didn't care either way. Either way, that was the last I heard from her. But I wasn't prepared for what happened next. Because less than 2 weeks later I got a voicemail from my dad. His voice shaking, saying something had happened at the house. That the kitchen was gone. That they needed help. And I knew exactly what I was going to say. The voicemail came mid-morning on a Wednesday, January 17th. The number wasn't saved in my phone, but I recognized the voice the second I hit play. It was my dad. He sounded tired. Not the usual passive-aggressive tired I was used to. This was real. Panicked, like he was trying not to let it show. He said there'd been a fire in the kitchen a couple nights before. An electrical issue. The stove shorted out, caught the wall behind it. Flames spread fast. The fire department showed up in time to stop it from taking the house, but the kitchen was trashed. Smoke damage. Water damage. Cabinets blackened, wiring fried. They couldn't cook, couldn't stay there long-term, and insurance was being difficult. Then he said it, the words I'd been expecting since Christmas. "We don't know who else to ask, Trish. Just help us get through the month. Please." I sat with that message for a full day. By now, I knew they weren't struggling the way they pretended to be. Not entirely. Rachel had just posted a photo with her new baby. A used Jeep Grand Cherokee with a red bow still on the hood. Captioned, "New Year, New Start." He had Brett take the picture. I saw him tagged in it. New start. I guess that didn't include telling your landlord you'd be short on rent. The next morning I drove over. Not out of guilt, I wanted to see it for myself. The neighborhood looked the same, just grayer under all the snow. The front yard was buried, their Christmas decorations still sagging in the cold. No one had taken them down. Mom opened the door. She was in a thick sweater and she didn't say anything right away. Just looked surprised. Then hopeful. I walked in. The kitchen was exactly how I imagined. Scorched wall, broken cabinets, the ceiling above it stained dark gray. You could still smell it. That acrid, wet, burned plastic smell that sinks into everything. Rachel was on the stairs, scrolling through her phone. She looked up when she saw me and gave a short, awkward smile. She was wearing one of my old hoodies. A gray one with paint stains on the sleeve from the time I helped repaint the back deck. I didn't say anything about it. Brett wasn't there. I didn't ask where he was. My mom started talking quickly, saying how everything went wrong so fast, how stressful it had been, how they were barely holding things together. She said they didn't want to come to me, but I was always the one who knew how to handle things. It was almost funny. After everything, they still thought flattery would work. I handed her a white envelope. She opened it while I stood there. Inside was a crisp $50 bill. Just one. She looked at it like it might be a mistake. Then she looked at me. I said, "You had no problem buying a car last week." Rachel stood up, suddenly defensive. She said the Jeep was used, that she needed it for work, that it was a good deal. My mom cut in, asking if I really thought $50 was going to help anyone right now. I said, "No, I just figured that's how much my spot at the table was worth." Then I walked out. They didn't follow me this time. I got back into my car, drove home through the same snow-covered streets I'd driven through on Christmas Eve. But this time there was no weight in my chest. No sting in my throat. I felt lighter. I blocked them that night. Not out of spite, just to stop the bleeding. No more texts. No more calls. No more questions about why I was making it so hard to move forward. They must have gotten the message, because I never heard from them again. Not from Mom. Not from Dad. Rachel unfollowed me. I noticed they all quietly removed me from the few remaining shared apps and accounts. I guess they finally realized I wasn't going to turn the money back on. And just like that, I was out. No dramatic goodbye. No closing conversation. Just silence. But it didn't last. Because 2 weeks later, on a Friday night in early February, someone knocked on my door. I looked through the peephole. It was Brett. Alone. Holding a duffel bag. And what he said when I opened the door changed everything again. I almost didn't open the door. It was late, already dark out, and I hadn't been expecting anyone. When I peeked through the peephole and saw Brett standing there alone, coat zipped up to his neck, holding a duffel bag and shifting from foot to foot like someone debating whether to knock again or turn around and leave, I froze. The last time I saw him, he was sitting at the dinner table where my plate used to be. I opened the door without saying anything and just waited. He looked surprised I'd let him in but didn't push it. He stepped inside, careful not to track snow past the mat, and stood just inside the doorway with his bag still slung over one shoulder. His face looked different, not tired exactly but worn down in a way that comes from too much pretending. He kept glancing around the room like he wasn't sure if he was really allowed to be here. "I'm not staying," he said quickly. "I mean, not unless, I just needed to talk to someone who wasn't losing their mind." I didn't say anything. He took a breath like he'd been holding it the entire walk over. "I moved out this morning," he said. "Your parents' house. I don't know how you lived in that space and came out the way you did." He sat down slowly on the armrest of the couch, keeping his bag clutched to his side like it was some kind of anchor. "Since New Year's it's been non-stop. Fighting, blaming, pretending nothing's wrong, then flipping out when someone mentions what is wrong. Rachel doesn't even look me in the eye anymore. She just complains. About the kitchen, about money, about you. I don't think a single day went by without someone saying your name like it was a problem to be solved." He paused, looked at me, but I still hadn't spoken. I just watched him unravel. "They're toxic, Trish. All of them. I stayed because I thought maybe I could help clean up the mess. Or at least not make it worse. I was wrong. I was just another moving part in a machine that runs on guilt and silence." I still hadn't said a word when he reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a thick envelope. He handed it to me without a word. Inside were folded receipts, statements, documents, and something colder than all of it. My name. Not hers. Rachel had opened a credit card under my name. The charges started small. Boutiques, fast food, and occasional Uber. Then it ramped up. Luxury spa packages, online orders, hotel stays. The kicker was a boutique furniture store in the city. $987 in one go. That was just 2 weeks after she told me she couldn't make her rent. I flipped through the papers slowly, trying to stay calm, but my hands were shaking. The dates went back to July. It wasn't a spur-of-the-moment thing. She'd been doing this for months. Quietly, comfortably, assuming I'd never notice. Or worse, that I wouldn't do anything if I did. Brett kept talking, his voice lower now. "She told me you'd never find out. That it was temporary. That you'd understand. And when I said it was fraud, she said it wasn't because you'd never press charges." He looked up. "She said she knew you. That you'd never risk blowing everything up over a few $1,000s. I didn't even hear the rest of what he said. My mind was somewhere else. Back in August, when she came by with takeout and called it a surprise visit. She asked how work was going, offered to water my plants while I was traveling for a conference. Said she missed how close we used to be. He probably opened the account that week." Brett stood up again but didn't reach for his bag. "I didn't know where else to go. I thought if you knew, maybe you could protect yourself. I didn't want to be a part of it anymore." I finally spoke. "She stole my name." He nodded slowly. "And she's still using it." I didn't say whether he could stay or not. I just walked to the kitchen and grabbed an extra blanket, tossed it on the couch, then went to my room. I didn't sleep that night. I laid in the dark holding the envelope, rereading every receipt until the sun came up. The betrayal didn't even hurt the most. It was how easy it had been for her. Like I was never her sister, just a resource with a bank account and a name she could use like a spare key. That morning I did what I knew I had to do. I printed everything. Every charge, every receipt, every line of evidence. And then I made 2 phone calls. One to the credit card company, and one to a lawyer. Because I'd let a lot slide in the name of keeping the peace. But this wasn't peace. This was war. And Rachel had just started it on paper. The credit card company handled it faster than I expected. I submitted the evidence. Every receipt Brett had given me, every email notification Rachel must have forgotten to delete, every transaction in my name. And within days the account was frozen and marked for investigation. I thought there'd be more pushback, more paperwork, but apparently this kind of thing wasn't rare. What was rare, according to the woman on the phone, was the thief being a sibling. She asked if I wanted to press charges. I didn't answer right away. I said I needed a few days. But I already knew the answer. I called a lawyer. A friend of a friend, calm, professional, didn't flinch when I told her it was my sister. He walked me through every step. Identity theft. Financial fraud. Restitution. The paperwork was long but simple. Everything I'd been avoiding doing for years, setting boundaries, protecting myself, was suddenly easy when it was in legal form. That weekend the fallout started. First came the unknown numbers. Texts, calls, Emails. Some pretending to be neutral, others clearly from Rachel using new numbers to get around my blocks. Her first message said she was sorry, things had gotten complicated. Then she pivoted, said she planned to pay it all back, that she was just overwhelmed. That the fire changed everything, and she needed support more than ever. Support. Not forgiveness. Not accountability. Just more support. More money. Then she said I was taking this too far. That I was turning my back on family over a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding doesn't cost over $8,000. My mom was next. She left a long voicemail, emotional and all over the place. She started off trying to sound calm, then started raising her voice about halfway through. She said it was wrong of me to involve lawyers. That I was being vindictive and ungrateful. That Rachel had made a mistake, but I'd made it worse. Her voice cracked when she said, "We don't call the police on our own family." I listened to that line twice, because that was the real truth. It had nothing to do with what Rachel had done. It had everything to do with me stepping out of the role I was given. The fixer, the silent provider, the daughter who keeps giving no matter what. Once I stopped playing that part, I became the problem. So I stopped answering completely. No replies. No explanations. I let my lawyer handle the rest. A week later, Brett messaged me again. He'd moved into a small place across town. Just a short-term lease while he figured things out. His message was short. No pressure. He just said, "She told them I made you press charges. That I poisoned you against them." Of course she did. She needed someone to blame. And the one decent person in that house was the easiest target. I didn't respond right away. But eventually I told him thank you. For the recording. For the honesty. For being the only person who seemed to see me for more than what I could give. We talked a few times after that. Nothing serious. No promises. He gave me space and I appreciated that. It was the first time I felt like I was choosing who got access to me instead of just handing it out like a free sample. In early March, the credit card company sent the final letter. The account was closed. My name cleared. The charges erased. The next steps were up to the district attorney. I didn't follow up. I didn't need to know what happened next. It was over. And for the first time in years, really over. A few days later, my dad left a voicemail. No anger. No excuses. Just his voice, quieter than I'd ever heard it. "You were right," he said. "We treated you like a safety net. I don't blame you for anything. I just hope someday, you'll want to talk again." I saved that message. But I haven't replied. I'm not angry anymore. I'm not even hurt. I'm just done. Rachel still has her Jeep. My parents are still trying to rebuild their kitchen. Maybe someday they'll all patch things up between each other. Or maybe they'll find someone else to lean on. Either way, I won't be there. This started out as the saddest Christmas of my life. But it also became the moment I stopped shrinking myself to keep the peace. I used to think walking away from family was the worst thing you could do. Now I know, staying and letting them destroy you slowly is worse. So I walked away. And I didn't look back.